Let me tell you something that may disturb you before it changes you. Every morning, millions of people wake up and do something that looks completely normal. They go to work. They exchange hours for money. They give their attention to somebody else's priorities. They spend the most valuable resource they will ever possess. And then they go home hoping they will have enough energy left to live their own life. And because everybody around them is doing the same thing, they don't question it. They call it normal. They call it adulthood. They call it responsibility. They call it survival. But nobody stops long enough to ask the dangerous question, what happens if I spend my entire life becoming excellent at selling something I can never get back? Your time, think about that. You can lose money and make it again. You can lose a job and find another one. You can lose an opportunity and create another opportunity. You can lose possessions and replace them. But when Tuesday morning is gone forever. There is no warehouse where you can go and buy yesterday. There is no bank where you can deposit unused years. There is no billionaire on earth who can purchase one extra minute after the clock has already taken it. And yet, people spend decades negotiating the price of their time while barely thinking about the value of their ability. That is where the problem begins, because if your only economic product is your time, there is a limit built into your life. You can work 8 hours, maybe 10, maybe 12, maybe 16 if you destroy your health and convince yourself that exhaustion is ambition. But eventually the body says enough. Eventually sleep demands payment. Eventually family demands attention. Eventually age changes the equation. Eventually you discover that there are only 24 hours in a day, and no amount of positive thinking can create a 25th. So the question isn't simply, how can I work harder? The better question is, how can I become more valuable? There is a difference, a very important difference. Working harder gives more of your existing capacity. Building high-value skills increases the capacity itself. And once you understand that distinction, you stop looking at your life as a schedule and start looking at it as an investment. Let me take you back to a simple scene. Imagine a young man sitting at a small kitchen table late at night. The house is quiet. His family is asleep. There is an old phone on the table. A cheap laptop is open in front of him. He has been working all day. His back hurts. His eyes are tired. He has bills waiting. There is no wealthy uncle coming to rescue him. No powerful connection. No perfect opportunity. No magical business idea. Just a decision. He can spend the next 2 hours watching entertainment because he has had a hard day. Or he can spend the next 2 hours becoming more valuable. Nobody would blame him for choosing entertainment. That's what makes the decision so powerful, because transformation usually doesn't happen when everybody is watching. Transformation happens when you are tired, nobody is applauding, and you still decide that your future deserves an investment. Maybe he studies sales, maybe he learns copywriting, maybe he learns coding, maybe he learns design, maybe he learns public speaking, maybe he studies financial literacy, maybe he learns how to negotiate, maybe he develops leadership, maybe he learns how to solve a problem businesses are willing to pay thousands of dollars to solve. At first, nothing happens. And this is where most people quit. They say, I spent 3 weeks learning and nothing changed. Of course, nothing changed. You planted a seed 3 weeks ago. You don't dig up a seed every morning to see whether it is growing. You water it. You protect it. You give it sunlight. You wait. You keep working. And one day, what was invisible becomes visible. Skills work the same way. For a while, your improvement is invisible. Your confidence doesn't look dramatically different. Your income may not change. Nobody notices. Your friends may even wonder why you're spending so much time learning something that doesn't seem to be paying you yet. But beneath the surface, something is happening. Your brain is building connections. Your judgment is improving. Your speed is increasing. Your mistakes are becoming more intelligent. Your understanding is becoming deeper. Your ability to create value is expanding. And then one day somebody presents you with a problem. And while 10 people say, I don't know how to do that, you say, I can solve it. That sentence can change your financial life. Not because you worked more hours, because you became more useful. Here is what most people don't understand. The marketplace does not simply reward effort. The marketplace rewards valuable solutions. You can work extremely hard digging a hole with your bare hands. Another person can operate a machine that digs the same hole in minutes. Who is working harder? Maybe you are. Who is creating more value? That's the question. Hard work matters. But hard work without skill can become a treadmill. You can run for miles and still be standing in the same place. You can be exhausted and still be financially stuck. You can be sincere and still be ineffective. You can have a good heart and still have poor economic results. This is not an insult. It is a principle. And principles don't care whether we like them. If you want different results, you must become capable of producing different results. That means your mission cannot simply be to find a job. Your mission should be to build yourself, build your knowledge, build your communication, build your ability to think, build your ability to sell, build your ability to create, build your ability to lead, build your ability to negotiate, build your ability to understand people, build your ability to use technology, build your ability to solve expensive problems. Because when you build enough valuable abilities, something remarkable begins to happen. You stop asking, who will hire me? You start asking, what problem can I solve? That is a completely different question. The first question makes you dependent on permission. The second makes you responsible for value. And responsibility is where power begins. Let me tell you something else. There is nothing wrong with having a job. A job can teach discipline. A job can teach structure. A job can provide income. A job can teach you how organizations work. A job can introduce you to people. A job can give you experience. A job can be an excellent classroom. But don't confuse the classroom with the destination. If you are working for someone today, learn everything you can. Learn how customers are acquired. Learn how products are priced. Learn how problems are solved. Learn how teams operate. Learn how leaders communicate. Learn how decisions are made. Learn what customers complain about. Learn what customers desperately want. Learn what nobody in the company wants to do. Because sometimes the thing everybody avoids is the very thing that can become your most valuable skill. You see, there are people who go to work every day and only ask, what do I have to do? And there are people who go to work and ask, what can I learn? The first person collects a paycheck. The second person collects a paycheck and an education. And after enough years, those two people may have completely different futures. One has accumulated expenses. The other has accumulated capability. One has become comfortable. The other has become valuable. One has protected the present. The other has built the future. Think about your own life for a moment. What skills do you possess today that you didn't possess 5 years ago? Don't answer too quickly. Really think. What can you do now that makes you more useful? What can you do now that saves somebody time? What can you do now that makes somebody more money? What can you do now that prevents a problem? What can you do now that creates something? What can you do now that most people around you cannot? Because that is where your economic opportunity begins. Your future income is often connected to the value of the problems you can solve. If you can solve a problem that is worth $10, somebody may pay you $10. If you can solve a problem worth $10,000, the economic conversation changes. If you can solve a problem worth $1 million, suddenly nobody is asking how many hours you worked. They are asking whether you can deliver the result. That is the transition from time-based thinking to value-based thinking. And I want you to understand how powerful this is. Imagine two people, both are intelligent, both work hard, both wake up early, both have families, both have responsibilities, both want a better life. But one spends 10 years trying to become faster at doing the same task. The other spends 10 years learning how to do higher value tasks. 10 years later, they may both be tired, but their economic position can be dramatically different. Why? Because one improved efficiency inside a limited skill. The other expanded the value of the skill itself. You don't merely want to become better at working. You want to become better at creating value. There is a difference. And once you understand that, your evenings change. Your weekends change. Your conversations change. Your questions change. You start noticing things. You hear someone complain about a business problem, and instead of saying, "That's unfortunate," your brain says, "Could that be solved?" You see a business with terrible marketing and think, someone could learn marketing and help them. You see a company with poor customer service and think someone could build a system for that. You see a creator who cannot edit videos and think someone could learn editing. You see a local business that has no online presence and think someone could help them build one. You see people struggling to communicate and think someone could teach them. You begin to see opportunity everywhere because your mind has changed. Opportunity is often invisible to the untrained mind. Not because opportunity isn't there, because the mind hasn't learned how to recognize it. And this is why education matters. Not education simply for certificates, education for capability, education that changes what you can see, education that changes what you can do, education that changes what problems you can solve. I learned something years ago that I want you to remember. The most expensive thing you can do is remain the same person while expecting a different financial future. You cannot keep the same habits, same knowledge, same skills, same circle, same thinking, same discipline, same schedule, same fears, and then demand a completely different life. Something has to change. And usually, the first thing that must change is you. Not your boss, not the economy, not your parents, not your childhood, not your neighbor, not your luck, you. That doesn't mean circumstances don't matter. They do. Some people start with enormous advantages. Others start with almost nothing. Some are given opportunities. Others have to create them. Some are born into stability. Others are born into chaos. Life is not perfectly fair, but there is still a territory that belongs to you. Your decisions, your habits, your learning, your discipline, your response, your character, your skill development. And if you take responsibility for those things, you begin to regain power. You may not control the market, but you can improve your ability. You may not control what your employer pays, but you can improve what you are capable of producing. You may not control the economy, but you can become more adaptable. You may not control other people's decisions, but you can become the kind of person who has options, and options are valuable. A person with one income source is vulnerable. A person with multiple valuable skills has leverage. A person who can sell, communicate, create, negotiate, lead, analyze, and solve problems has choices. And choices create freedom. Now let me say something that may challenge you. Most people don't actually have a money problem. They have a value problem. They have not developed enough valuable capability to command more income. And before somebody gets angry, let me clarify. I'm not saying every poor person is responsible for their circumstances. I'm saying that if you want to improve your economic future, one of the most powerful things you can control is your value in the marketplace. You can spend years complaining about low wages, or you can spend those years building skills that qualify you for higher value work. You can spend your evenings scrolling, or you can spend some of them studying. You can spend your weekends escaping your current life. Or you can spend part of them building the life you want. You don't have to become obsessed. You don't need to work 20 hours a day. You don't need to hate yourself. You don't need to become a machine, but you do need to invest. Because your future doesn't suddenly become valuable. It becomes valuable because you invested into it. Compound interest is not only a financial principle, it is a human principle. Ride 10 pages every day. One day, you're still almost the same. 1 year later, you're different. Practice speaking every day. One day you still stumble. 1 year later, your communication has changed. Practice writing every day. One day your sentences are ordinary. 1 year later, you can communicate ideas with power. Practice selling every day. One day rejection hurts. 1 year later, you understand people better. Practice solving problems. One day, you're confused. 1 year later, you see patterns. This is the compound effect. Small improvements don't look impressive in the beginning. That's why most people underestimate them. They want a transformation they can see immediately. But real transformation often happens quietly. You become 1% better, then another 1%, then another. And after enough time, the person you became is almost unrecognizable compared to the person you were. That's why you should stop asking, how can I change my entire life this month? Ask, what can I practice today that will make me more valuable 1 year from now? That question is powerful because it puts your attention where it belongs. Today, not someday, today. What can you learn today? What can you practice today? What can you build today? What conversation can you have today? What problem can you solve today? What mistake can you correct today? What book can you read today? What distraction can you eliminate today? Because your future is not created by some dramatic event that arrives from the sky. Your future is usually created by ordinary days, repeated long enough. And that is both frightening and encouraging. It is frightening because you cannot blame the future on one bad day. It is encouraging because you don't need one extraordinary day to change everything. You need better ordinary days. You need better mornings, better decisions, better habits, better questions, better skills, better standards, and eventually better results. Let me tell you about the hidden cost of staying comfortable. Comfort feels free. It isn't. Comfort has a price. The price is potential. Every time you choose the easy thing over the meaningful thing, something inside your future becomes weaker. Not destroyed, weakened. And that's important because you don't ruin your life in one afternoon. Most people slowly negotiate away their potential. 5 minutes here, an hour there, a week of excuses, a month without learning, a year without changing, and then one day they look around and say, how did I get here? You got there gradually, just like everyone does. And the opposite is also true. You don't usually build an extraordinary life in one afternoon. You build it gradually. One book, one skill, one conversation, one disciplined morning, one uncomfortable decision, one rejection, one lesson, one attempt, one improvement, then another, and another. Until one day, people call you successful, and they don't understand how many invisible repetitions created that result. They see the tree. They don't see the roots. They see confidence. They don't see the years of practice. They see income. They don't see the nights of learning. They see expertise. They don't see the thousands of mistakes. They see the result. They don't see the investment. This is why you must become comfortable with invisible progress. Because if you require applause before you continue, you will quit before the compound effect has time to work. Nobody claps when you're reading at midnight. Nobody gives you a trophy for practicing a skill alone. Nobody sends you congratulations because you refuse to waste 2 hours scrolling. Nobody knows that you turned down an invitation because you had something important to build, but your future knows. Your future receives the consequences. Every hour you invest in yourself becomes part of who you are. Every hour you waste becomes part of what you didn't become. And that is a difficult truth, because time doesn't only measure what you did. It also measures what you could have done. Imagine reaching the age of 70 and meeting the person you could have become. Imagine that person sitting across from you. He has the confidence you never developed, the skills you never practiced, the business you never started, the books you never read, the conversations you avoided, the risks you never took, the discipline you never built. And he asks you one question: why didn't you? What would you say? Would you say you were too busy? Would you say you were afraid? Would you say you were waiting for the right moment? Would you say you didn't feel motivated? Would you say people doubted you? Would you say you didn't have enough money? Maybe some of those reasons would be true, but they would not erase the pain, because regret is a strange teacher. It arrives late, and by the time it arrives, the lesson is expensive. That's why I want you to think differently about your time. Don't just protect it. Invest it. Protecting time means avoiding waste. Investing time means using it to increase your future capacity. You need both. Don't spend every hour working. That's not wisdom. Don't spend every hour relaxing. That's not wisdom either. Learn the rhythm. Work, study, recover, build, enjoy, reflect. Improve live. But understand what each hour is doing for your future. Because there is a huge difference between an hour that disappears and an hour that compounds. An hour watching random content may give you temporary stimulation. An hour learning a valuable skill may increase your future earning ability for decades. An hour complaining changes almost nothing. An hour practicing can change your competence. An hour comparing yourself to someone else produces envy. An hour improving yourself produces capability. Same 60 minutes, different investment. That's the game. And once you see time as capital, you become much more careful about where you put it. You start asking, is this making me stronger or weaker? Is this helping me build or merely helping me escape? Is this teaching me something? Is this creating something? Is this strengthening a relationship that matters? Is this improving my health? Is this developing my mind? Is this moving me toward the person I want to become? You don't need to become obsessed with productivity. You need to become intentional. Because there is a difference between being busy and being effective. A person can answer emails all day and create almost nothing important. Another person can spend 3 focused hours building something that changes their financial future. The world often rewards results more than busyness. So stop being proud of exhaustion. Be proud of effectiveness. Don't say, I worked 12 hours. Ask, what did those 12 hours produce? Don't say, I was busy all week. Ask, what became better because I was busy? Don't say, I tried hard. Ask, what did I learn from trying? That is mature thinking. That is how you move from effort to effectiveness. And one of the greatest skills you can develop is the ability to distinguish between low-value activity and high-value activity. There are tasks that consume time. There are tasks that create value. There are tasks that maintain your current position. There are tasks that improve your future position. There are tasks that make you feel productive. There are tasks that actually produce results. You need to learn the difference. A person can spend 4 hours perfecting something. Nobody wants another person can spend 40 minutes talking to customers and discover exactly what people need. Who worked harder? Again, wrong question. Who learned something valuable? Who moved closer to a solution? Who increased their understanding? Who created demand? Who built capability? That is where your attention belongs. Now let's talk about skills. Not all skills are equal. And you don't need 100 skills. You need a combination of useful skills. Think about it like building a machine. One skill may be helpful, But several complementary skills can make you extraordinarily valuable. Maybe you know how to write, and you learn marketing. Now you can write persuasive marketing. Maybe you know design, and you learn sales. Now you can create and sell. Maybe you know technology, and you learn communication. Now you can explain complicated things to ordinary people. Maybe you know finance, and you learn negotiation. Now you can make better decisions and negotiate better outcomes. Maybe you know leadership, and you learn psychology. Now you understand people more deeply. Skills multiply. And this is where many people make a mistake. They ask, what one skill will make me rich? That's the wrong question. Ask, what combination of skills can make me unusually valuable? Because sometimes the advantage isn't being the world's best at one thing. Sometimes it's becoming very good at 3 or 4 things that rarely appear together. Imagine someone who is a decent writer, decent marketer, decent speaker, good at understanding psychology, and disciplined enough to execute. That combination is powerful. Another person may be a brilliant writer, but cannot communicate. Another may be a brilliant marketer, but cannot create. Another may be technically excellent, but cannot sell. The person who combines capabilities can become incredibly useful. And usefulness creates opportunity. So don't chase every new trend. Build foundations. Learn to communicate. Learn to think. Learn to sell. Learn to write. Learn to understand numbers. Learn technology. Learn emotional intelligence. Learn discipline. Learn negotiation. Learn how to learn. That last one may be the most important, because if you can learn, you can adapt. And adaptation is one of the great survival skills of the modern economy. Industries change. Tools change. Lot loss change. Technology changes. The consumer behavior changes. Companies change. The skill that pays well today may become ordinary tomorrow. So don't fall in love with a particular tool. Fall in love with learning. Don't say, I am a video editor. Say, I know how to learn tools that help people communicate visually. Don't say, I am only a salesperson. Don't say, I know how to understand needs, communicate value, handle objections, and create agreements. Don't tie your identity to one task. Tie your identity to your ability to grow. Because if the world changes and your identity collapses with it, you become afraid. But if your identity is, I am someone who learns, adapts, builds, and solves problems, then change becomes an opportunity. You don't fear the future as much. You prepare for it. And preparation creates confidence. Real confidence is not walking into a room saying, I'm amazing. Real confidence is walking into a room thinking, I may not know everything, but I know how to figure things out. That is different. That confidence is earned. You don't affirm your way into competence. You practice your way into competence. You don't wish your way into confidence. You prepare your way into confidence. You don't complain your way into opportunity. You become useful enough to create opportunity. And sometimes becoming useful requires doing things you don't enjoy. That's where discipline enters, because motivation is unreliable. Some mornings you will feel inspired. Some mornings you will feel empty. Some days you will wake up ready to conquer the world. Other days you will question everything. If your progress depends on your mood, your progress will be inconsistent. You need systems. You need commitments. You need standards. You need a reason bigger than your temporary feelings. You need to say, I don't have to feel like doing this. I decided. That is discipline. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is remembering what you want when the emotion of the moment is trying to make you forget. You want financial freedom? Then learn. You want independence? Then build capability. You want options? Then become valuable. You want to stop depending entirely on one paycheck? Then develop skills that can travel with you. You want to build something of your own? Then learn how to create value before you demand rewards. This is where patience becomes essential. because the impatient person wants the reward before the transformation. They want the income before the skill. They want the audience before the content. They want the business before the customer. They want the confidence before the practice. They want the harvest without planting. But life doesn't work that way. You cannot negotiate with the harvest. You can only work with the season you're in. If you're in the learning season, learn. If you're in the building season, build. If you're in the testing season, test. If you're in the failure season, study the failure. If you're in the recovery season, recover. But don't confuse a season with your identity. A difficult year does not mean you are a failure. A low income period does not mean you are worthless. A rejected proposal does not mean you are incapable. A failed business does not mean you cannot build another. A skill you're bad at today may become the skill that changes your life if you stay with it long enough. Think about how many times a child falls before walking. The child doesn't interpret falling as a philosophical judgment. The child falls, gets up, tries again, falls, gets up, tries again. Imagine if adults had the same relationship with failure. Imagine if you treated rejection as information. Imagine if you treated mistakes as tuition. Imagine if you stopped saying, I failed, and started saying, that approach failed. What did it teach me? That small change in language can change your entire psychology, because failure is not always evidence that you are incapable. Sometimes it is evidence that your method needs improvement. Maybe your offer was weak. Improve the offer. Maybe your communication was unclear. Improve the communication. Maybe your skill level wasn't high enough. Practice. Maybe you didn't understand the customer. Listen, maybe your timing was wrong. Adapt. Maybe you needed more experience. Get experience. The answer isn't always to quit. Sometimes the answer is to become better. And this is where humility becomes an economic advantage. The ego says, I already know. The learner says, what am I missing? The ego protects itself. The learner improves. The ego hates criticism. The learner extracts information from criticism. The ego needs to look intelligent. The learner wants to become intelligent. Those are completely different mindsets. If you can remain teachable, you can keep growing. And if you keep growing, you keep increasing your options. Let me give you a simple picture. Imagine 2 buckets. Every day, one person fills his bucket with entertainment, short videos, arguments, celebrity gossip, endless scrolling, random opinions, constant distraction. The other person fills his bucket with knowledge, books, practice, conversations, experiments, skills, experience. At the end of one day, the difference is tiny. At the end of 1 year, the difference is significant. At the end of 10 years, the difference can become enormous. And then people call it luck. They say, he's lucky. She's talented. They had connections. They knew the right people. Maybe. But don't underestimate accumulated preparation. Sometimes what looks like luck is simply opportunity, meeting a person who has prepared long enough to recognize it. That's why you need to prepare before you need the opportunity. Don't wait until you lose your job to learn a new skill. Don't wait until your income collapses to understand money. Don't wait until your business struggles to learn marketing. Don't wait until your health deteriorates to respect your body. Don't wait until your relationships fall apart to learn communication. Don't wait until you're 40 to ask what you should have started at 20. Start where you are. Use what you have. Learn what you don't know and keep moving. Maybe you're thinking, but I don't have time. Let me challenge that. You may not have much time, but you have some. And some is enough to begin. 30 minutes every day is over 3 hours a week. 3 hours a week becomes more than 150 hours a year. 150 hours spent deliberately on one skill can change your competence. And if you can find 1 hour, the numbers become even more powerful. The issue is rarely that people have absolutely no time. The issue is that their time is already committed to things that don't move their life forward. And this is where you must become honest. How much time do you spend scrolling? How much time do you spend watching content you won't remember tomorrow? How much time do you spend discussing people who are not even present? How much time do you spend worrying about things you cannot control? How much time do you spend consuming instead of creating? You don't need to eliminate entertainment. You need to eliminate unconscious consumption. There is a difference between choosing entertainment and being controlled by it. One is recreation, the other is dependency. And if every moment of discomfort sends you toward your phone, you have trained your brain to escape instead of endure. That matters because learning a valuable skill requires discomfort. At first, you will be bad. You will feel stupid. You will make mistakes. You will compare yourself to people who have been practicing for 10 years. You will want to quit. And if your brain has learned that discomfort means escape, you will quit. But if you train yourself to stay with difficulty, something changes. Your tolerance expands, your patience expands, your competence expands, your confidence expands. This is why discipline is not just about getting things done. It is about training your nervous system to remain present when the work becomes difficult. You sit down, you focus, you struggle, you continue. You don't need to feel brilliant. You need to remain engaged. You solve one problem, then another. You make one improvement, then another. And eventually the difficult thing becomes familiar. That's how mastery begins. Not with talent, with repetition. And repetition is where ordinary people can become extraordinary. You don't need to be the most gifted person in the room. You need to be willing to practice longer than most people. You need to be willing to learn from your mistakes. You need to be willing to stay when the excitement disappears. Because excitement gets you started. Commitment keeps you going. Now, here's something else you must understand. High-value skills are not valuable simply because they are difficult. They are valuable because they solve meaningful problems. A difficult skill nobody needs may not create much economic value. A simple skill applied to an important problem can be extremely valuable. So don't chase difficulty, chase usefulness. Ask, who needs this? How badly do they need it? What does this problem cost them? Can I solve it better? Can I solve it faster? Can I solve it more reliably? Can I make the solution easier? Those questions turn learning into economic thinking. You don't learn a skill merely to say you know it. You learn it so you can create something with it. This is why projects are so important. Don't only watch tutorials, build. Don't only read about writing. Route. Don't only study sales. Sell something. Don't only study design. Design something. Don't only study coding. Build something. Don't only watch public speaking. Speak. Because knowledge without application creates the illusion of competence. You can watch 100 videos about swimming and still drown if you never enter the water. At some point, you must practice. At some point, theory must become behavior. And behavior creates evidence. You don't need to tell yourself you're becoming skilled. Your work will tell you. Your results will tell you. Your customers will tell you. Your audience will tell you. Your opportunities will tell you. Your income will eventually tell you. And yes, money is feedback. Not the only feedback. But feedback, if nobody is willing to pay for something, you should become curious. Maybe your skill is valuable, but your marketing is weak. Maybe your offer is unclear. Maybe your audience is wrong. Maybe the market doesn't care. Maybe your execution isn't good enough. Instead of getting emotional, investigate. That is what professionals do. They don't take every result personally. They analyze, they adjust, they improve, they try again. And this is why emotional maturity matters in business and in life. If every rejection destroys your confidence, you become fragile. If every criticism makes you defensive, you stop learning. If every setback makes you quit, you never stay long enough to become excellent.